Jeremy.
Hey everyone. Yeah, my name is Jeremy Wheatley. I'm the LSM Program coordinator, so I do a lot of the student-facing coordinating.
Hi guys, I'm Shreya. I am a junior at LSM right now, studying neuroscience and finance.
And hello everyone, my name is Hoyt. I'm a senior in LSM. I'm studying computational bio and statistics.
Brilliant, thanks. So, okay, the plan here is that Jeremy and I are going to do a presentation for you to go over the nuts and bolts of the LSM program, what it is and what we do here, to give you that background information. And then we're going to turn it over to Shreya and Hoyt for a little while to talk about their experience in LSM. And at that point, we're going to turn it over to you and ask you to give us any questions that you might have. So I'm going to ask you at that point to put your questions in the chat, and I will direct them appropriately or try to answer them if I can. And all right, so I guess we will get started with our presentation here. We are going to start with our founder and along with his wife Diana, our patron Roy Vagelos, who was originally a chemistry major at Penn some years ago, and he went on from Penn to go on to medical school. He became a biochemistry researcher, and from a position as a teacher in a medical school, he was then snapped up by Merck to head their research labs, which he revolutionized for them. He was so good at that they made him the CEO of the company, and so he ran Merck back in the late 1980s. And at that point, he realized that it might have been nice had he not only got a founding in the sciences that he came to know so well, but also in the business side of this, to understand not just science, but also the implementation of science and how things are developed and actually brought to market and ultimately to the people who can benefit from them. So he's an inspiration in that way. He's also an inspiration in that Merck in the late 1980s was a very highly regarded, very popular company, and the biopharma industry, the life sciences industry, was very admired at that time. That is probably less so the case now, but we are hoping that people who go on from the LSM program will be leaders in the life sciences industry, but also hopefully solve some of its problems and transform it for the better. So, okay, what does that mean when you actually are an LSM student? Part of what it means is that everyone in this program is expected to complete 2 degrees, not just one, in their 4 years here. So one is a bachelor's in life sciences, and it does have to be in the life sciences major, so that can be things like biology, of course, or biochemistry, or neuroscience within the biological basis and behavior program. And then they're also getting a bachelor's degree in business from the Wharton School of Business, and that means you do all of the business fundamental courses that any other Wharton undergrad does, and you also do a concentration, which can be in any area at all. So popular amongst our students are healthcare management and finance, but there's also general management and a whole host of other options, and you can choose any of them in this program. Bookending that curriculum, bookending these degrees, are 2 courses that are unique to LSM. So everybody in their first semester in the program does the LSMP 121 Pro Seminar, which is taught by the 2 faculty co-directors of this program, who are Dr. Rob Burns, who's a professor in the healthcare management department in Wharton, and also Dr. Phil Ray, who is a biochemist. He's a professor in the biology department in the College of Arts and Sciences. And they introduce students to why you're studying these 2 subjects together. So they talk about some scientific innovations, and they talk about the ways that scientific innovations happen, and then about that implementation process. When you get to the end of the LSM curriculum, the senior year, there is a capstone project which occupies the whole of the senior year. And that capstone project involves the students working in teams on an actual life sciences innovation that they get to borrow. But the inventor really is trying to bring this innovation to market. And the students come up with a plan to do that. So they have to come up with it is healthcare, because that is what the instructors know. Dr. Stephen Nickberger and Dr. Joan Lau are not actually full-time faculty. What they do in their day job is that they are both CEOs of life sciences companies themselves, and they are teaching the students to to do what they do, essentially build a business around a life sciences innovation. And it's healthcare innovations that they know, and that's what they do in the capstone project. So the students come up with a preclinical plan and a clinical plan, and they come up with pricing, and they figure out the business side of this project, and what that culminates in is a presentation to an audience full of actual life sciences industry leaders, in which the students have to convince them that what they are presenting here is both good science and good medicine, and also a good business proposition. Because LSM is about not just science, but the implementation of science, and we're very outward looking, we do also require, as part of the degree, 2 summer internships, one of which is in scientific research, and the other one is in business, or it can be in policy. And they happen after sophomore and junior year, and if they're not paid, then we have funding for them, so everybody is guaranteed to be supported financially during these internships. And it's part of my job to try and help people find these internships. The scientific research internship can be in an academic institution, or it can be in a company. So, for example, we have people each year who go to Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center to go and do cancer-related research there. But we also have people who work in R&D, for example, at companies like Johnson & Johnson, which you're probably familiar with, or Genentech, the large biotech company, Kite Pharma, a smaller cell therapy company, and that sort of thing. And for business and policy internships, we have a lot of people who go and work in life sciences consulting or life sciences investment banking. We also have people who work on the business side of life sciences companies. We also have people who do policy research or who work in policy-related positions. So there's quite a lot of variety of possibilities.
Sorry. Thanks, Peter. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what makes LSM LSM, and also the sort of extracurricular side to LSM. So to start off with, how is like a program like LSM possible at UPenn? And so the answer to that is this slide, essentially, which is intended to show, give you an illustration of how a program like LSM is possible at UPenn. So on the right side, you'll see a bird's eye view of the campus, and highlighted are a handful of buildings. And essentially what these are centers of academic excellence, research institutions, and really just the nuts and bolts, what makes LSM LSM. So in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see CHOP and University of Pennsylvania Hospital System, which is obviously a major center of research in Philadelphia, but also the world. And it's a place where many LSM students conduct their own research or research with a PI, and also do shadowing and that sort of thing. A little bit up and to the left, you'll see a tiny rectangular building, and that is actually where the LSM office is, and also where the LSM lounge is, which is a student space just for LSM students. And it's also where my office is, and Peter and Dr. Ray's office are. And then scattered around the campus in other places, you'll see the veterinary school, dentistry school, Wharton Business School, his main building, Huntsman Hall is right up in the top center. And what all this is intended to show is that a program like LSM is possible at Penn because of the proximity of these resources to LSM students and Penn students in general. And it's quite literally just a walkable. These centers of research are within walking distance and available to LSM students. So Peter spoke a bit about the sort of curricular side. I'm going to talk a bit about the sort of extracurricular side to the program. And this is kind of one of the major differences between a coordinated and an uncoordinated dual degree program. With a coordinated dual degree program like LSM, we sort of program in these resources to help you connect the dots between the two degrees. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but just to highlight a few, I'm going to talk about, start with the LSM Retreat. So the LSM Retreat is a 2-day off-campus event that we host every fall. And it's intended really as an orientation for first years and sophomore transfers, with some extra programming for juniors now. But really it's an opportunity for first years to meet the program, faculty and staff, as well as alumni, upperclassmen, members of the LSM Advisory Board, and really to get an idea of the community that exists within LSM, but also an idea of how to bring these two degrees together. And that's not necessarily day one, it's more like day 15, but pretty close to the start of your time at Penn. In addition to that, we host regular career conversations. We call them pizza talks. And essentially what these are is we'll bring in speakers who work at the intersection of life science and business or policy, and they will talk about their careers, how they got to where they are, the decisions that they made, what they see the current healthcare or business landscape looking like. And it's really an opportunity for LSM students to see what's out there, get a sort of real-time look at what the field looks like, but also to figure out, what are the decisions that these relatively senior people made along their career and the sort of wisdom that they've gained. And in addition to that, we also work pretty closely with our student advisory board to plan community-based events for the LSM program. So the LSAB is a sort of mini student government that plans events and apparel. And Peter and I work with them to plan events like Thanksgiving dinners, Quizos, movie nights, trips, when that's a thing. And really just ways to bring the LSM community together and build those bonds between classes. And so that's a lot, and there's a lot that I didn't cover, but I'd like to add that LSM students do have a life outside of the program. That's what Hoyt and Shreya will tell you all about. But don't worry, there's plenty for you to do outside of LSM as well. And so I think I'm going to turn it over to Peter to start us off on this slide.
Thanks, Jeremy. So we're not going to go over all of these alumni we have pictured, but we wanted to give you a flavor of what people can do after they leave the program. So I'm going to start with Saurabh, who graduated LSM back in 2011. His first stop was the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, where he got a master's in public health. And then he actually returned to Penn to come and do an MBA here. The reason that he wanted to get an MBA is that he wanted to take a little bit more advantage of the healthcare management department in Wharton here. When he was an LSM undergrad, he did both of his internships actually in Guatemala. And first he studied the need for an emergency medicine service in a rural part of Guatemala, where he was with some Penn faculty and others. And then he actually implemented it the following year. So they actually implemented an ambulance service that was staffed by people locally, so that it was sustainable. He got really interested in doing this as a career, so he decided that on a larger scale he wanted to be involved in providing medical care and clinics in the Global South. And so this is actually why he went on from his MD MBA into a general surgery residency, because from his research he discovered that it was general surgery that was going to provide him with the most valuable skills for what he wanted to do. Subsequently, he's actually on break from his residency because there was an exciting research opportunity that he discovered, leading hopefully to an interesting therapy back here at Penn. So he's back with us again, but he will then go on and complete his residency and go on to be a practicing physician, hopefully working overseas. Jeremy, go ahead.
Right, so I'm going to talk briefly about Eileen, who graduated in 2012. So right after finishing LSM, she went and got her MPhil in biochemistry from the University of Cambridge. And then came back to the States, went to Harvard, got her PhD in chemistry and chemical biology. And while she was working, completing her PhD at Harvard, she was actually working as an advisor for Context Therapeutics, which is a small company based up in Boston, I believe, that was developing two central nervous system therapies. And what she was doing was she was helping them essentially figure out their preclinical development plan for these two therapies and evaluating them based on their potential. And since then, she's completed her PhD, and she's now actually working as a consultant, I believe, with McKinsey. And so what the slide is really intended to show is that it is common for LSM students to start out as analysts or working in investment banks or consulting on Wall Street. But how they go throughout their career and integrate the two degrees varies quite a lot. So obviously Eileen and Saurabh, very heavy on the science. And sort of very long for Eileen, 7 years, conducting a PhD, but then circling back to industry to use the knowledge that she's gained to make those changes and help influence those investing decisions. And then likewise, the opposite is true. You know, people spend a long time in investment banks, but then they'll circle back, like perhaps Sudha. So the possibility is there's a lot of possibilities of how you can combine these two degrees into a career. So that is it for us, presentation-wise. If you'd like to learn more, there's always our website. You also feel free to reach out to Peter and myself over email, and feel free to check out the LSM Instagram. In terms of like the nitty-gritty admissions questions about applications and deadlines and submitting extra documents and all that stuff, we recommend you direct those to the admissions contact, because they're the ones that's going to handle all that stuff. But for us, I think Peter is going to turn it over to our students, and then we'll open up for Q&A. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeremy. And yes, so I'm going to ask Shreya and Hoyt if they would just tell you all a little bit about what a typical day in the life of an LSM student might look like.
Yeah, I can get started on that. I think that I would really echo the sentiment that LSM students, despite having such a rigorous course load, have a lot of time in their day, and you can definitely have a life outside of class. I would like to say that I have a life outside of class, and that I'm involved in a lot of different things. So I think on a day-to-day basis, typically for me, class starts at around 10:30, and most of the time in my day, I will be done with classes by around 3. And that tends to be, I guess, the case for me throughout the week. But after that, I tend to have a lot of free time when it comes up to my afternoons and evenings. I'm involved in a few different groups on campus, and we tend to have meetings or other events and activities that we do sort of throughout the day. So for example, I'm a part of Bloomers, which is a comedy group on campus, and we have meetings pretty regularly where we write content. I'm a writer for them. I can't act, so I write jokes and stuff for them. So I do that on a pretty regular basis. And I think that's just one example of a lot of things that a lot of LSM students can get involved in. And sort of outside of it, I think that within LSM, we have a pretty strong sort of social scene. I think that a lot of my friends happen to be students that are within my class in LSM, so we'd also typically hang out, maybe grab dinner together and that sort of thing. But I think on a day-to-day basis, it's a relatively relaxed sort of schedule with a pretty good balance, I would say, in terms of classes, extracurriculars, and then just free time to do whatever else I'd like to do.
Sure, and I can kind of jump in and provide another perspective. I think I prepared it a little bit differently than what Shreya did, but I'll kind of just give you a literal day in the life and what that kind of looks like. So for me, and I don't know if you can tell already in my room over here, I'm a big fan of hats and pictures, so I'll talk about that and loop it in as well. But for me, I'm a morning person, so I typically get up around maybe 7:30 a.m. And Philly has a really good scene of local coffee shops, and so for me, I'll tend to walk to one in the morning, maybe with a friend or so, and we just sit down, maybe plan out our days in our planners and do some early catch-up of, say, a finance problem set or an accounting problem set in the morning. Afterwards, at around 10, 11-ish, I might head over to class. So I'll walk over into, I don't know if you guys have been on campus before, but maybe I'll walk into the Huntsman building nearby Locust to sit on one of my lectures. And come around noontime, I'll typically grab a quick lunch here and there. Philly has a lot of good food trucks, so my favorite is this taco stand right under the bridge on Locust, so I'll go there. And then I might just grab the food and walk over to the LSM lounge. Typically, there's quite a few students just sitting around casually, just talking, grabbing lunch, just studying a little bit. So I'll usually sit in there and just say hi to some people, and then usually Peter and Jeremy are in there as well, so I'll quickly pop by and say hi, have a little chat. So after lunch, I guess usually there's a lot of variability, kind of to what Shreya was saying. Some people have class in the afternoon, some people study in the mornings. So usually for me, I like to have an early afternoon class, so I'll probably head over there. And let's say this course is a biology course, which happens to be in the same building that the LSM lounge is in. So I'm in there taking for example, genomic medicine course where we sit around in different tables, and then it's a fairly interesting class where the professor does doesn't really lecture, but instead he gives a topic to you, and then you spend an hour and a half or so just literally digging up literature and Google posts online more about the topic, and say we present back examples about genetic medicine. And so after that, say it's around like 3 p.m. or so, at that point I'll kind of need a break from class, and usually I might walk over to our local gym, Potruck, which is near campus. So I'll pop there a little bit, get a little bit of a workout in. And then for me, usually on a good day, I take pictures a lot. And so for me, I'll grab another buddy or so and walk down into Center City, which, I mean, Philadelphia is a fairly large area, but in itself, Penn is located about 5-10 minutes or so from downtown Philadelphia. And so for a lot of us, it's a pretty convenient walk to get there. And so for me, I'll grab a couple of buddies and just get our cameras out and go along that walk into the Center City and just take some photos along the way. And then come evening time, it's really flexible. So for me, we might say get drinks at a happy hour, or maybe have a nice dinner over in some rooftop lounge or so. And really come around evening time, that's when maybe I might have an early bedtime, or depending on the date, if I have an exam coming up, I'll usually head back over to the Huntsman building or maybe the LSM lounge, do some more studying here and there. But that kind of wraps up a quick day in life. I hope that gives some more context into what it looks like day to day. But Shri and I are super happy to answer any questions you all might have.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, so the food truck mention is making me realize I'm really hungry, but we definitely want to get to your questions before we get to our lunch. So please feel free to start entering your questions in the chat, and I'll moderate, but I'll be trying to direct most of these questions to Shreya and Hoyt. And let's start with this first question that we have. Can you please briefly discuss what courses you take in each of the 4 years, and how rigorous are the mandatory courses required for both degrees? You probably both have things to say about that.
Yeah, I can start on that question. So I think that one thing that I really enjoy about LSM is because I think for me, at least, both of the degrees, when it comes to both the Wharton course load and the sort of bio or life sciences course load, are really different, both in terms of scope as well as in terms of how classes typically are. So in my opinion, I think that Wharton classes are significantly different from sort of the life science classes, because those tend to be very sort of memorization based, also very rigorous when it comes to, I guess, the amount of exams that you have and that sort of thing. So it's a really typical sort of science course load. And Wharton classes, on the other hand, tend to be a lot of projects, a lot of papers, at least in my understanding of it. So I think for me, I've been able to balance it really well, just because I've seen that there's been a pretty strong and sort of even split when it comes to the kind of work that I have to do for both. But I guess in terms of how rigorous the mandatory courses are for both degrees, I honestly think it depends on the class and the kind of focuses and interests that you have. So I think in Wharton, you have sort of the business fundamentals that you have to take in that Wharton core. And then on top of it, you can take classes within a particular concentration that you're interested in. I think that the core is definitely very doable, and there are a lot of resources on campus in the event that you are struggling with the class. So at least for me, accounting was a class that I took last year, and I don't love accounting. I think that it was a difficult class for me. But I think one thing that really helped was pen tutoring, as well as just having a ton of friends that were taking the class with me, where we can all just sit together and really grind out anytime we had a midterm. So I think that even though some classes can be more challenging than others, I've never sort of felt like I was alone, or like I was fully unable to kind of complete it to the best of my ability. And then when I guess it comes to bio classes, I think it also sort of depends on what classes you're interested in taking. I think it's definitely a step up from, especially at least when looking back in freshman year, thinking about high school classes and APs and all of that. It's definitely kind of a learning curve when it comes to adjusting how to study for a college class. But I think that especially also in LSM, there's a ton of students that are taking the intro classes with you. And I think that that really helped me in terms of trying to figure out how I wanted to study and how to do best in this class. So I think over time, even though it is a bit of a challenging course load, it definitely ramps up, and you have a really strong foundation when it goes into the program.
Yeah, I mean, not really much to add on there. I really echo a lot of what Shreya was saying. Kind of just follow up to some points Shreya was mentioning. I remember, yeah, when freshman year coming in, we had our first biology course. And I'm sure all of you listening to the audience, I mean, you guys are all taking AP, IB courses, you know, being the smart students you are already. And coming into college, I mean, that was no surprise where at first the coursework is definitely a little trickier than, say, high school classes. But at the same time, all of us, and there was a squad of just LSM students sitting in bio lecture where afterwards you can all go to the lounge and study together. So that was kind of nice. And one thing I forgot to mention is now come senior year, I'm actually in the LSM capstone course, which is the one where, kind of to what Peter and Jeremy were saying, is the course where you actually work on developing a business proposal and commercialization plan for an actual life science technology. And personally for me, I've found this course to be one of the more intensive courses I've taken here at Penn, but also one of the most rewarding ones. I think throughout my time in college, I've definitely taken some trickier classes here and there, but none too fairly difficult. I think after a while you get a sense of what college courses are kind of like, but at the same time, it's really about kind of the effort you put into some courses. And for me, I've definitely found a lot of value in the LSM capstone course so far.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Shri and Hoyt. And so another question here that I think I can handle. Do you have to be admitted by both the business school and the science departments when you apply? No. If you apply to LSM, then LSM, the LSM committee considers you. If you're admitted, then you're automatically accepted both into the college and into Wharton at that point. And if you have a second choice of single degree, you can also apply to them and potentially be considered later if you're not admitted into LSM. And then the question, is it possible to minor in something as well? I don't want to overpromise here because as the students I imagine would confirm, LSM is quite a lot in and of itself. So it is quite a lot just to complete the 2 degrees. And I would say there is no need to do anything beyond 2 degrees. You're already getting 2 degrees. You don't have to do anything more to impress people. But Shri and Hoyt, I don't know if you have any comment on that, on the possibility of adding a minor on top of all of that.
Yeah, quick jump to that. Totally doable. I think it also depends on what you're trying to concentrate in on the college and then Wharton side as well. So some people might just do a typical biology degree in the College of Arts and Sciences. Some people take a more specific track, say in infectious disease, neuroscience, computational biology, and then over on the Wharton side, you come in with a baseline degree, a Bachelor's of Science in Economics, but you can choose to have concentrations, which I think someone in the chat is saying is here, healthcare management is one option, you have finance, statistics, and so you can do 1 or 2 concentrations. I think that's what Wharton has set the new limit to. I know in the past some students have done 3, if not 4 concentrations in LSM, so definitely viable, just only limiting yourself to 1 or 2 concentrations to have that available space for a minor. But even beyond just doing a minor for the sake of doing a minor, I think just taking electives for the sake of learning what the content is has served me more value over time. So that's where I've gotten a lot of my minor exploration, if you will.
Yeah, I would really echo that sentiment. I think, I know initially coming into freshman year, I would email Dr. Stokes all the time being like, would it be possible for me to minor in this? Like, I don't know, I came in being really interested in like English and gender studies, for example. And I think that through talking to other students in LSM, I think you can totally do a minor. And if that's something that you really have your sights set on, then that's not impossible by any means. But I also think that just by nature of being at Penn and being exposed to so many different departments and having the ability to take so many different kinds of classes, you're already taking 2 degrees, like was said. So, I mean, honestly, I would also argue that it might be even like more beneficial for you in terms of overall to just try and explore in as many different classes and in as many different areas as possible. I mean, if you decide that you really love a particular department and want to keep taking classes in that, and that's totally up to you. But I found that, at least for me, trying out classes in a ton of different departments that I wasn't even considering just to start have turned out to be the classes that I really enjoyed and really taken the most away from. So I would definitely not knock that option as well.
Great, thanks. The next question is as Hoyt mentioned, so somebody who wants to pursue healthcare management at Wharton, so what would be the best life sciences concentration? I don't know if there's a right answer to that. I mean, you can certainly combine healthcare management in Wharton with any of the available life sciences majors. Shreya and Hoyt, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that? Or alternatively, do you want to talk a little bit about how you chose your own life sciences majors, actually?
Yeah, I mean, so I think that it's really great that you have an idea of kind of what concentration you'd like to go into when it comes to entering into Wharton. But just to start, I think that even though it's a really good idea to have in mind sort of concentrations that you're interested in, I don't think you should come in like with having like a super strong feeling of I'm going to pursue this and this only. I think what I've really enjoyed about Wharton is the fact that we have this sort of business core and the ability to kind of explore and take classes in all of the different concentrations and departments. So even if you think that you really want to go into healthcare management, you might come into Wharton and realize that, for example, like marketing or finance or your calling. So I wouldn't necessarily really bank super hard on coming in with a very strong idea of what you want to do. I think that you should kind of keep an open mind when it comes to picking concentrations and picking majors. And I also think that any life science concentration would go well with a healthcare management concentration. For me, at least, I think that within trying to figure out my life science concentration, I started by taking all of the intro classes that I think the typical LSM student takes. I think my schedule was very similar to most of the other students in my class just to start. But then I started trying to explore into kind of bio classes that I might be interested in. I took a few genetics classes. I took BBB 109, which is the intro into the neuroscience major. And I think taking that class in particular made me really, really interested in the subject. I think that I thought neuroscience was really fascinating. And I found myself doing a lot of research on the class outside of the class, which was definitely something that indicated to me that I really wanted to pursue that. So that's kind of how I picked my concentration. It took me a little bit of time when it came to trying to figure out exactly what I want, but you have a lot of time and a lot of leeway when it comes to figuring out what exactly you want to do. So I wouldn't also necessarily stress on that right now at this point.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think, and Peter, Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have until the end of sophomore year to decide our concentrations. And what I do remember is that all of freshman, early sophomore year, I think I bounced around different concentrations at least 5 or 6 times. I think for me, so for context, I do computational biology in the college, and then in Wharton, I do healthcare management and statistics as my concentrations. And I've seen quite a variety of LSM students do healthcare management as a concentration in addition to really any life sciences degree. So whether it's computational biology, neuroscience, infectious disease, we've kind of seen it all. And so really there's no perfect combination, if you will. So really just be open to the idea of exploring. For myself, I ended up picking computational biology, which was a good fit with the statistics in Wharton, because I found myself really loving the analytical and quantitative courses. So I went with more of that quantitative biology focus as my major. And then the healthcare management end, for me, I'm really interested in policy long-term, and kind of to what Peter and Jeremy were mentioning about the internships. This past summer, I worked at, you can consider it like a think tank and a policy lab for the summer. And for me, longer term, that's what I'm interested in. And I felt that healthcare management was a perfect combination of the policy plus the life science blend for me to do.
Brilliant. You two are good advisors. That's good advice, I think, to not to worry too much about the choice and give yourself a chance to explore. Thanks so much. Yeah. If other folks have questions, please go ahead and enter them in. Well, okay. So we have a question. Are there any extracurriculars like internships and research, etc., that are specifically for LSM? Hoyt and Shreya, do you want to handle that as well?
And I guess in terms of extracurriculars that are specifically for LSM, I think that there are a lot of extracurriculars that you can get involved with that are kind of aligned with either sort of the life sciences or the business or both. I think that, for example, within Wharton, there are a lot of sort of clubs and groups that are really involved when it comes to the healthcare space. So I know we have like the Wharton Undergraduate Healthcare Club, the Wharton Neuroscience Society, and a ton of other groups that allow you to kind of operate in sort of the intersection and get speakers and have panelists and that sort of thing. Then get a lot of sort of advice when it comes to careers and find a lot of like-minded people. I think also a lot of LSM students do get involved in research. I, for example, do research in Penn Medicine with a professor in genetics. So I do research regarding African genetics and trying to, it's a lot of trying to understand sort of how populations have evolved over time, starting from the original origin of all human life in Africa. I found that professor because she did a talk in my Bio 121, so my intro bio class, and I was obsessed with her, and I emailed her multiple times, and eventually she responded to me. So I think that there's a lot of things that you can get involved in that kind of go in hand when it comes to either your life sciences or your business classes. And I think that you can kind of sort of figure those out as soon as you get to campus and see what other students are doing, as well as just talking to upperclassmen in the program and seeing what they do.
Yeah, I will say that, and I'll kind of let Peter and Jeremy handle this question as well, since I'm sure they can talk more about specific LSM advice and how they support you in finding internships and research opportunities. Because there are a lot of instances where, say, former LSM students who have gone through the similar internships and research labs have built this reputation around LSM, if you will. And so sort of these PIs and other managers are looking for LSM students in particular, which I've found has really helped me. And kind of to Shreya's example, in our LSM Pro seminar class, I remember there was this one speaker who has this one biotech company, and he was lecturing around venture capital in biotech. I was super interested in his presentation, but I went up to him afterwards and kind of just bugged him the same way that Shreya did to her professor. And then that ended up becoming my freshman summer internship opportunity, where I had a chance to do business development at an oncology biotech, just purely from someone I met at an LSM event. So I thought that was really an interesting scenario.
Yeah, some good lessons there in taking initiative and being persistent, I think, apart from anything else, but thanks. Yeah. So and as Hoyt says, that there are some internships where, thanks to the fact that LSM students have gone there and done well in the past, where we do have a relationship. So there are some companies, both for the science internship and for the business internship, where they have a preference sometimes for LSM students, or they certainly at least look out for LSM students. And so nobody has to do those internships, but those are internships that are available to LSM students on a regular basis. And we did, for example, have a student who had done research herself, who is our current chair of the student advisory board, who actually put together a database based on people's feedback, LSM students' feedback about their research labs that they had been in, so that other folks can go and see what research labs LSM students have been in previously, and maybe go there as well if it looks like it's a good fit for them. It's not something that's specific to LSM, but that's the sort of I guess that sort of wisdom being passed down from upperclassmen to the younger students there. Okay. And all right, so another question is study abroad available for LSM students? The short answer is yes, but it requires some planning. Shreya and Hoyt, do you have any thoughts on study abroad yourself?
Hoyt, did you ever study abroad or go abroad?
I didn't, but I had one other student in my year, Sydney. She did, and she loved it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think that study abroad is definitely something that you have to plan, and I think that there are places that let you sort of do classes that fit into your business classes as well as sort of your life science classes. But I think even beyond just doing a whole semester of study abroad, there's a lot of ways that you can go abroad at Penn. For example, your freshman year, you have the option, or even beyond that, you have the option to study abroad as a summer program. So, for example, there's Penn in Madrid, where they take students to fulfill their foreign language requirements in Spain, and you're also studying abroad for the summer. And even beyond that, we have sort of Penn Global Seminars, which are classes that you can take, and they will, for example, over spring break, take you for a week to go study in the region that you're studying on campus. So honestly, even if you don't get to do a full semester abroad, it's not impossible for you to study and spend some of your time at Penn in a different country. And I don't think that you should kind of feel worried when it comes to that.
Right, yeah, I think that's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, we have, one, maybe two people each year who take an actual semester overseas, and as Shreya says, it does require some advanced planning, so you can figure out what courses you can take overseas that will help fill requirements and that kind of thing. But yeah, amongst the opportunities Shreya mentioned as well, it is possible to do your LSM internships overseas potentially. So for example, we've had people go to India thanks to internships actually but offered by Penn's Center for the Advanced Study of India, and we've had folks who've gone and done research or business in Europe, elsewhere in Asia, and so forth. So there are a few possibilities for going overseas while you're here. Next question is, how is the LSM alumni network? Hoyt and Shreya, I don't know what contact with the alumni network you've had.
Yeah, sure. I can kick off this one. I've found the LSM Alumni Network to be one of the most beneficial things about the program because everyone is just so helpful. I mean, keep in mind, LSM was only a program that started, I'm going to get this wrong, at 2011, 2009?
The first graduates are 2010.
2010. Okay, I was somewhat close. But since then, there's just so many people out in the world that you have unlimited just reach and contact out to. Anytime that I want to reach out to someone, I might ask Peter and ask him, hey, I'm interested in this field. Mind if I speak with so-and-so who graduated in so-and-so year? And I don't think a single person has never not responded to me. I think the alumni are always willing to help out the current undergrad just because it's such a small niche of people who go through this 4-year education of biology and business. We want to see each other succeed, and I definitely found that support through the program. There have been times where I've traveled over to Boston and San Francisco or New York just for being there, and I might ask an LSM alumni to meet up and grab coffee, and they've taken me up on that offer where we've gotten coffee at a local coffee shop. One of them's even taken me down to his office at the Google headquarters in Mountain View. So there's really quite a large flexibility of how much people are willing to support, but everyone's really happy to help out any way they can.
I would really echo that sentiment. I think that the LSM alums, everyone that I've spoken to, have been just so helpful and so ready to answer any questions that I have and just like be a mentor and a resource for me. I think that in LSM we have alumni pairings such that I think my freshman year I was given an alumni mentor, and he happened to be from Dallas, and he was going to medical school. So it was really great for me just because I was trying to figure out whether or not I wanted to do medical school sometime in the future. And he sat down with me and he pulled out an Excel spreadsheet and planned all of my classes for the next few years, which was really nice of him. And then also when it comes to trying to figure out sort of like jobs and career opportunities, I've reached out to Dr. Stokes and Jeremy multiple times about asking for different alumni contacts. And I've had so much help when it comes to interview prep. I've had alums that were just willing to take time out of their day and they're working and interview me and get me ready for if I was interested in anything that they were doing. So I think overall they've just been so helpful and definitely a resource that I've used multiple times during my time on campus.
Brilliant, thanks. And then a couple more questions. One is, what is the approximate gender ratio in LSM? And it's about 45% women, actually, so close to equal. And then can you share some insights on what you see as the attributes, what you see are the attributes of students who are successful in the LSM program? I have thoughts on what makes LSM students great, but I don't want to embarrass Shreya and Hoyt here. Do you have answers to that yourself, actually, as to what attributes make LSM students successful?
Yeah, that's a hard question. I'm trying to think. In terms of students that, I mean, just by nature of sort of applying into the LSM program, I think that there's a lot to say when it comes to the ambition of the average student, as well as their sort of ability to not be afraid of a challenge of any kind. I think that most of the time, a lot of the LSM students that I've gotten really close to, I've always been very sort of impressed and amazed by how willing they are to be challenged and how willing they are to go through and take a lot of classes, for example, that are incredibly difficult. But even just beyond, I think the nature of combining life sciences and management puts you up for a significant sort of a little bit more of a difficult sort of path when it comes to in terms of trying to figure out what you want to do and trying to figure out what path you want in terms of a career. So I think that people that are definitely incredibly passionate, I found to be someone and kind of a hallmark of successful LSM students. And I think passion can mean multiple things in this scenario. Doesn't necessarily mean that you are super passionate about biology, for example, although I think that happens a lot. But I think really just passionate about sort of what they'd like to see and what they'd like sort of the end goal of their next 4 years or their next sort of steps in life to be. I found to be attributes of successful LSM students. But overall, I think just by nature of the program and by nature of the students that you're surrounded with, I think that you are setting yourself up really well when it comes to being successful.
Yeah, echo a lot of those same sentiments. I don't have the perfect adjectives to describe an LSM student because there's so much variety that it's hard to, box someone into a certain, I guess, set of adjectives. I think if I could share maybe like 2 more words here, it might be a lot of open-mindedness and comfort with ambiguity. And I say that in the sense of a lot of us coming in, we have this interest in biology, we have this interest in business, but we're still so open to exploring because we know that there's so much that we haven't seen before. And a lot of the coursework that we take come freshman year in our LSM Pro Seminar and all these other courses, they really open you up to so much more. And I've definitely seen that every LSM student I've interacted with is just super open to learning and absorbing really everything that there is to know about the world and that's out there. And the second point about comfort with ambiguity comes in the sense of, as we're trying to figure out and explore, maybe someone has a clear idea that, hey, they want to be a brain surgeon by the time that they come into college. But a lot of us have a sense of, well, we want to check out what the biology and the business is all about, so let's be open to the idea of uncertainty and also just explore and see where that horizon takes us. And I've found that to be something that I've seen a lot of other LSM students.
Yeah, I would echo those things. Curious and excited about learning and exploring, and certainly open to a challenge, and maybe by definition being in this program. And then I'd also say really good at teamwork, actually, and supportive of each other from what we observe. Yeah, Jeremy, do we have anything else we might add there?
How to mute myself. I'd echo everything everybody else said, but also like a humbleness, and I guess that comes with the sort of inquisitive nature. Like they don't assume to know too much. Like they're always learning and they're always curious and hungry for knowledge. But that comes with a certain, reservation and understanding of what you don't know. And I always appreciate that.
Agreed. And then somebody asked, does LSM offer any college summer or winter internships or camps for high school students? Which we don't, but we are always open to being contacted, however, by high school students. So we are happy. Jeremy and I are happy to talk to folks, and we can connect you with current students to talk with as well if you would like to learn more about the program in that way. And then I guess an obvious question, which is, what does LSM admissions look for in applicants? Is there anything specific? And that probably relates to the attributes that we were just discussing. But I guess I would say broadly, the LSM admissions committee first of all looks for people who are excited about the sciences, so that we hope that people will maintain their excitement about science and scientific innovations throughout the program, even if they end up being more interested ultimately in life sciences business. And then you're not expected to have any business experience by the time you're applying to college, but what we do like to see is that you have been part of a team at some point and enjoy working as part of a team. Since there is teamwork in courses that you will do in LSM courses, and since it is nice to have a nice community atmosphere here after all as well. And then beyond that, I guess it's also a matter that it's nice if you can articulate why it is that you're interested in this combination of disciplines that we do offer in this program. So as Shreya and Hoyt have very nicely been making clear, you don't have to know the course of the rest of your life when you're applying to college or to this program, but having some sense of what this combination might do for you and what having these skills could help you do for others is a good thing. So some sense of why you actually want to do this, I guess, and being able to articulate that can help the committee see if you're a good fit. Okay. I think that is all the questions that we have here. So maybe we can wrap up at this point, unless anybody else wants to fire in any questions here. I don't know if any of us have anything to add that we haven't had a chance to talk about already. You don't have to say yes to that. Otherwise, I'll say thanks very much to Jeremy and especially to Shreya and Hoyt for taking time out of their day to come join us and to talk about their experiences in the program so very well. Thank you so much for doing that. I appreciate it. And thank you all for coming and listening and learning about LSM. And let us know if you still have any questions or if you want to talk to us individually. Thanks so much for being here.